friends, where you spend your money. All of these are outward expressions of who you are. And your choices reveal something about you. What are they revealing about you? That's the question for me that I cannot stop thinking about. What do your choices reveal about what's in your heart? Think on that for a second. I'm not going to make you answer that. I think as I really focus on that, I have to deal with some issues I don't want to deal with, to be honest. Because when I started thinking, okay, so people judge by the outward appearance, God looks at the heart. I'm not really even sure what that means. But I know that when I was growing up, somebody along the way, indirectly, I was told I had to be perfect. That like to be a good girl, you were loved. You got praise, you got attention. But if you were bad, or you made the bad choices, or you disobeyed, you weren't. Or maybe you didn't get that affection or attention. That was my story. And when I was younger, I was a little bit more okay with it, I think. I kind of felt like, cool, I'm like the best kid out of everybody in my house, so I get all the love, you know? And I can kind of control it. If I'm just good enough, they'll keep loving me. But then when I got into high school, it got a little bit more tricky. Because I wasn't always making the best decisions, right? High school is a time where you're just figuring out who you are, we'll just say that. And so is college. So I'm in high school, I'm making choices, and then when I'm making choices that are bad choices, I'm like, oh shoot, am I unlovable? Man, like, I was not athletic, as you hear my stories, and I would like try out for a team and I would never practice. I'm like, oh, I didn't get on it. Like, never even practice. Club volleyball, sure, yeah, I can do that. Oh, I didn't get on the team, what's wrong with me? But I really started to wonder, you know, these choices that I was making were revealing a lot about myself. And I started to realize that what was really in my heart was fear. Like, I was afraid that if people knew the real me, if they saw what was motivating my actions in high school, or like, why I'm in this group, or why I'm doing this thing, and then I make a bad choice, I'm like, oh, bad choice, that's who I am, huh? That people wouldn't love me. That if they saw the real thoughts, what I was really thinking about you, I don't know, like, people would not love me. So if people wouldn't love me, and I had to earn that, then how would God love me? God doesn't choose to love me, he has to love me. That's kind of like what my parents do, right? They have me, and they have to love me. And that's what I thought, and that's what I believed. And it kind of continued like that into college, and I kept thinking, I was afraid. I made all these choices, I do all these things, good things and bad things, if you want to call them, in like all these clubs or nonprofits doing all this stuff, and trying to figure out who I was over here, making these choices. And I would just kind of think, man, if anyone knew the real me, have you ever wondered that? Man, if anybody knew what I was thinking right now, oh my gosh, they'd freak out. Or if the core of who I am was like exposed, like really exposed, then what? What would people do with that? And in my experience, it was that they would not love you. But the reality is that God already sees it, right? So God sees the good stuff, the bad stuff, the stuff you do, the stuff you think. He sees the core of who you are, and he loves you. He chooses to love you. And not by what you do or don't do, but because of the core of who you are. He made you to love you. Man, that is just not what I believed. It's not, and the fact is, although I knew that he saw me and the real me, it almost made me overcompensate and like try to be even better than. I'll do more. Man, I've messed up in all these areas, then I'll just keep going. I'll get my master's. I'll work with a nonprofit. I'll do this. I'll volunteer. I'm too messed up. I'm too beyond repair. God cannot love me. Some of you might be relating to that tonight, or even just a little word in there. Like, man, I felt like that, or I thought that before. And God sees you. He sees all of you. And he's not scared. And he's not like, ew, what is that? He's like, I love you. I choose to love you. For me, when I think about this verse, it shows pretty clearly what God looks at. Like, it's not some hidden message, right? It says very clearly, he's like, God sees everything. He sees it different the way that you look at things. Stop trying to see it like him. And he looks at your heart. And he still chooses to love you. Whatever you believe, God still looks at your heart. He does. And I think when I look at this verse, I'm like, I thought I would be a little bit comforted by that. Oh, good. Okay, well, then maybe I don't have to be so perfect on the outside. But man, the inside was like uglier. Oh, shoot. It freaks me out to know that God looks at my heart. So when you think of the word heart, you might be thinking of like a physical heart, like a red heart, right? I think that's what I always think. Like floating above my head is my heart. It's like red, and it's not here. It's like, okay. So let's just define it for a second. For those of you who are like, she keeps saying her heart, and God looks at my heart. Is it the beating, nasty muscle? Like, that's not cute. Okay, so in the Bible, it says over and over again that the heart is figuratively, does anyone know what figuratively means? Yeah. Okay, what does it mean? Not cool, not literally. Awesome, yes. Don't you think you know a word and then you're like, what does that mean? Figuratively, the heart means the seat of emotions. It's like the center of emotions. Literally, in the Bible and different stories, it means it's actually the center of decision, the center of choices, our character, our personality, who we are, why we do what we do. That it's there, and it's a place where we show courage and love and affection. For this story, we are going to look at the heart as the center of, not emotions. Sorry, no floating red heart in this room. But the center of decisions, choices, why we do what we do. And this is what I think that means in one sentence. God is more concerned. Is he more concerned about what you look like? He's more concerned that you're perfect? Okay, because that would suck if that was the case. But God is more concerned about who you are and not what you do. And who you are comes from your heart. God is not concerned about what you do, but about who you are. And who you are comes from your heart. You might think that you are who you are just like thrown together. You're like, no, I just am who I am because of life and circumstances and your choices. And your choices. I don't know about you, but I hear this again, it's still not super comforting. Like, I thought maybe if I defined heart, I'd be like, oh, okay, I can deal with that one. But I was like, oh man, he knows my choices and every reason why I do everything I do all the time. So when you're like, oh, did you just do that to like get attention? I'm like, no. Yes. God's like, I know what you were doing. I'm like, oh my gosh. Oh shoot. And I don't know why, but I always thought that that was like the big looking, what is it, magnifying glass of the ant, you know, like the big hand, and the sun coming through it and like torturing the ant. Have you ever seen that image? Yeah. You know what I'm talking about? Whatever. But that's what I thought it was like, that God is looking at me to judge me. So if he's not concerned with the outward appearance and he's more concerned with my heart, then why am I so concerned with my outward appearance? And the question is the same for you. If God is more concerned with your heart, then why are you so concerned with your outward appearance? Who you date, what you'll be, how much money you'll make, how skinny you are,